YouTube. How you doing? Okay, so sorry about shaking the camera. So we're going to touch on the mark of the beast tonight. And first I want to, and I'm going to start out by telling you right out of the gate what's going on. But before I do that, I want to read part of Revelation 13, which in part is where this is spoken of in the Bible. So it says, "And I beheld another beast." This is Revelation 13, starting in verse 11. "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns, like a lamb. And he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So we're going to talk about the mark. And I want to ask you, well, let me back up. In the previous video, we talked about, I touched on what a lot of people discuss they feel that the mark is. Transhumanism, because that's really big right now, and it's going to get bigger because there are freaks with a lot of money and power running around controlling things. So yeah, that'll be something we'll have to face, but that's not melding of a human and a machine is not the mark of the beast. So it's not a chip, it's not a barcode, it's not a thing, it's not a remote control, it's none of those things. Let's talk about the word mark. It's, in this context, consider it as an adjective. When you think of it that way, what's the mark, say, of a good husband? Or if you're a guy, a good wife. What's the mark of a good baker? The mark of a good spouse, of course, is that they are true to you and they love you, and they don't cheat on you. The mark of a good baker is the things that he or she creates in the kitchen taste wonderful. The mark of a good football player, salary probably is one of those, but he doesn't get a salary without showing his skill on the field. A mark of a good football player that is a quarterback, for example, would be that he can throw the football where it needs to go, exactly. Not kind of, but exactly. Almost all the time. The mark of a good lineman is he doesn't let someone get to the quarterback, right? So the mark of a good teacher would be good students that are learning and are thriving in that teacher's class. That would be among the traits that would be a mark of that teacher's excellence in their field. What's the mark of a good salesman? High sales, right? So these things are the mark. It's a descriptor. It's not a thing. Now, when we talk about the mark of the beast, what's the opposite of that? The opposite of the mark of the beast would be, well, the beast we all know is the enemy, Satan. The opposite of that, of course, is the king, God, the creator. The Bible doesn't talk about having a mark of God. It talks about having a seal of God. If you think about in our human world, what is a seal? If you have to sign documents and have them notarized, or government officials sign their documents, they have a seal, and the seal generally will say what that person is in charge of, what their area is. Like the presidential seal says he's, the chief executive officer, so to say, of the United States of America. It gives his authority over that area. So God has a seal. The enemy likes to fake many things of God, but he doesn't fake them in giant ways. Well, he does, but that's for the people that do not care about God, or things of God, or things of even spiritual nature, or they're just off the rails. You know what I mean? I mean, there's evil everywhere, right? People killing and raping and all types of disgusting, inexplicable behavior, really. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what he tries to do to fool those who think they are adhering to what God commands. People have said to me on discussion panels or discussion boards, well, God is about love, and so he can't possibly be concerned about commandments or rules, really. I mean, it's all about love, and he's not a harsh taskmaster. I mean, that would be evil. He's not an evil taskmaster, and he forces nobody to do anything. He gives free will and free choice to all humanity. If they choose to run off the rails, and so be it. He doesn't force anybody. The opposite of that is not what he is about. However, he does have standards. I mean, come on. If we go all the way back to the beginning with Cain and Abel, this is our first example of, other than Adam and Eve, of course, which messed it up for everybody, but I'm sure we don't know all of that story. We'll find that out in heaven. But Cain and Abel, when they went to sacrifice to God, Cain decided to do it the way he wanted to do it. Abel did it the way God asked for worship to be done, and he did it. He sacrificed in the way that God asked sacrifices to be made. And Cain was not too happy about that, because Abel's sacrifice was accepted by God. Cain's was not. And Cain took offense to that and killed his brother. So God didn't make Cain kill his brother. All God did was honor the individual who performed the sacrifice in the way that he was asked to do it, not under and by his own idea. The Bible talks about that too. I forget what that verse is right now, but anyway, I don't want to get too far afield, even though I probably already am. But so I just want to lay a couple of those things out first. Now, so the mark of the beast is a falsification of what God's seal is. We talked a little bit last week about Sabbath. And if you look at Exodus 20, verse 8, I think it is, Exodus 28. Now remember what we just said about what a seal includes. Territory, who the person is, all of that. It has elements of that person's authority and to what extent that person's authority is in the seal that you see on a document or a piece of paper. Well, in God's commandments, He gives us that. That's provided here. Now, He didn't create the Sabbath. We talked about this already too. He didn't create the Sabbath in the middle of the whole exodus of the Israelites in the wilderness and such, and when He gave these commandments. He created Sabbath. He created the seventh day in creation, during creation week. So, but I just want to remind everybody what the commandment says in its entirety. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So in this commandment, which is in the middle of the 10 commandments, it says who God is. He's the creator. It says what His territory is. It's the entire planet. Okay, so that's His seal. And it's actually discussed in many of the other areas in the Bible as well. It talks about it being a perpetual covenant. So now what would be the opposite of what God's seal is then? Well, that would be if God has a... So the enemy is thinking, well, if God has a day, then I want a day. If God gets sacrifices, then I want sacrifices. What kind of sacrifices do you think that the enemy gets? We can read in history and find many of those, and they're disgusting. So I might do a video on that, but it's pretty disgusting, so I don't know about that. But anyway, you get the idea. I can't even imagine. I mean, when the Israelites were in the wilderness and they were having, when they were going to go have their sins forgiven, and they were going to go to the temple, they had to take a lamb without blemish, and slit its throat. I just can't even imagine having to do that. And that's nothing compared to what Jesus did for us. Okay, so anyway, the enemy's fraud is Sunday sacredness. God gave us, created an entire day to spend with Him and honor Him and keep that day holy. The seventh day, weekly. The enemy decided to have his own, and he would just have the next one, Sunday. Now, we know by looking around that most people go to church on Sunday. They don't keep that day. So even if people were misinformed and they were thinking that the fourth commandment was meant for Sunday, they're not keeping that whole day holy. They're going to church, whatever that is for them, and that's it. Then they go home and they watch football or do yard work or go drinking or whatever. That's not keeping a day holy. It's just not. And people that go to church on the seventh day of the week, many of them do the same thing, okay? So I'm not saying that there's any one special group of people out there. I am talking about what the Bible says. I don't care necessarily what all the people are doing. I care about what God asks us to do and what He gave us as a gift. I mean, I went over that a little bit before, but it's just amazing that He gave us that type of a gift. I mean, He could have created us to have to work 24/7, 365, okay? And He didn't do that. So the entire planet almost is full. Now, if you read the Bible, it talks about the broad path. Many there be that, many find that gate and they go into that gate, the big giant broad path. That doesn't lead to heaven. I'll let you guess where it leads. Narrow is the gate, and few there be that find it. The narrow gate is the way. That's where Jesus is, through the narrow gate. Does it sound to you like, 3 billion people that go to church on Sunday, it would be fitting through a narrow gate? That sounds like a wide gate crowd to me. I'm just saying. If you ask 10 people, you'd probably have to ask more than that. You can ask 20 people, maybe 30 people, what day they go to church, if they go to church at all. See how many people you have to ask before you find somebody that says they go to church on the 7th day. And then ask them if they're willing to tell you, what do they do the rest of the day? Like, what do they do? I'm not trying to judge. I'm just being real, and I'm telling you that most people are worshiping the way Cain did, okay? That's not the narrow way. Abel paid with his life. And so what I'm telling you is the mark of the beast is Sunday sacredness. And it's going to happen by way of the Roman Catholic Church. And most of the people, when this goes down, a lot of people that will end up coming to the right understanding will be those who worship on Sunday. They'll come to the right understanding because they'll be martyrs. The Bible tells us this. So I don't know what order things are going to happen. I feel like the economy will fail first. That just makes sense to me because that would be in place before the sweeping legislation would go into effect. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet, but worshiping the beast is worshiping the way he says to, the enemy. That's worshiping the beast. So I just wanted to drop this little nugget and I want to talk more about it, but I just needed to get it out. It was on my mind and I wanted to get it out. Now, actually something else just popped into my mind. It kind of goes back to the beginning of the video where I was talking about a lot of the YouTube channels and things that talk about the things that are going on right now with crazy science and the transhumanism and things like that. I believe that there are human elements that are guided by the enemy that are going to try to, and probably will succeed, at pulling off revelation in a literal way. And everybody's expecting that. Excuse me. Most people are expecting that. So that won't be a surprise. And that will suck in a lot more people to hell, frankly, because those people who are not reading Revelation in a spiritual way and are expecting all these things to happen via science and chips and computers and all the rest of it, will be taken in by these actions. But Revelation is written in symbols, right? I mean, John was on Patmos. He had these visions. God gave him these visions to write down to provide us a warning. But it says right here that the book of Revelation is in symbols. It says in Revelation 1:1, it says, "The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John." Signified. Symbolism. There's not going to be a giant beast with 10 heads and iron teeth literally coming up out of the water. I mean, the Bible interprets itself. It tells us that waters are people, right? So the opposite of water is earth. So earth would be an area of land that wasn't populated and such. It tells us who these beasts are back in Daniel. So anyway, my point was that I would bet any amount that the freaks in charge of this world right now that are following the enemy and being schooled by him will make all this stuff in here be literal. I don't know how to make it, well, I have an idea about that, but they'll make it appear real, you see, but it won't be real. There isn't a 10-headed beast with crowns. So I'll leave it at that for now. I just wanted to touch on that. And when I watch programs put on by, it's usually put on by ministries about the end times and so forth, they drag you through this whole thing and then they tell you at the end, you know, what the punchline is. I wanted to tell you what the punchline is first. And then we'll talk about, I'll provide some texts and some writings that I have that go into explaining why that is, so that you can go study it for yourself. And you should. You're going to have to know this stuff. If you're interested in going to heaven, you'll have to know it, because when all this stuff goes down, which is going to be soon, you won't have the Bible to study. You won't have these things. You need to get it into your mind now and anchor yourself onto Jesus Christ. That's how you make it. Because he's coming soon. There's not much more that can happen that he can let happen. It's gotten pretty bad. I've seen some things over the weekend that just they're astonishing, that I just don't know how he can stand it with how disgusting some things are that are going on. But he's coming soon, so get ready, study, and get ready. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.